A very good evening to you. Welcome to another session of Man Up, Kikao cha Wanaume. This is where we sit down as men and discuss issues that are affecting today's man and finding solutions and charting the way forward. We want to get into an interesting conversation today. We want to talk about the rites of passage. When you think back, to our traditional ways of life, there was a rite of passage that young men were going through. And there was a reason for that, and there are things that happened there. We want to look at that and try and find out what was that all about. Have we lost some valuable things by not taking some of what was done before into today's world and into today's culture? And also, as Christians, what does that have to do with how we live life today? I've got two amazing gentlemen joining me in studio this evening to be part of our guests. First and foremost, I've got Dr. Michael Mugo. Dr. Michael Mugo is a public health specialist in epidemiology. He's also the National Vice Chairman of the National Gikuyu Cultural Association, Kiama.
Yes.
That's how you say it?
Kiama.
Hey, Kiama. I like that. He's also a cultural counselor and mentor. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone this evening. I'm happy to be in studio today.
Karibu.
Thank you.
Awesome. We also have Pastor Slim Sufficient. Pastor Slim is a team leader and coordinator at Camp Daraja. This is a Rites of Passage program for boys. He has a passion for just working with young men and ensuring that they grow up to be the men that they are supposed to be. It's good to have you.
Asante sana.
In studio.
Asante sana.
Karibu sana. So we have the old, the young, and the in-between.
The ancestors, if you would like it.
Let me call us the ancestor. We will revisit. We will revisit.
Yes, and probably I am. I don't know.
Let me ask you, looking back, when we talk about rites of passage, what is rites of passage?
First of all, this is a very important discussion at this stage in time. Because we look backwards and we maybe look at where we are and what we aim to do in future. Rite of passage basically was meant to achieve a physical, social, and spiritual transformation from, say, boyhood for men into manhood.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about adulthood, but manhood.
Yes.
And therefore inculcate the roles of a man at that early stage by advising the young boy to shed off the boyhood. Boyhood has a lot of issues. A free stage. It's one of the best stages in life where you are not responsible for anything. You can tell lies and you don't care. You can do some sins here and there and you are forgiven. Among the Agikuyu, the culture believed that boys are death-proof. They cannot be affected by spirits. They cannot be affected by anything. But the moment they undergo the rite of passage, starting with the physical circumcision, afterwards, if they do anything, then something may happen to them because now they are dealing with a man. And among the Gikuyu, if they were to count their children, they are not counting as circumcised boys. They would not say, but then after that, they will say, we have so many people in my family. They won't count them. At that time now, you get an identity. They were getting both an identity, they were getting an age group, what we call Rika in Kikuyu, which is a very important stage. And it's that stage where you go into kind of a regimen. Just like in the military. If you join the military, you are or even university, you are what? Year 2022. You develop a certain culture.
So you're in a group.
And you are taught the same thing, and you are expected to have the same group behavior and the same responsibilities. And that those who are in that regimen have some responsibility over you, and that you cannot also go against what you have agreed. So that if you make a mistake in life, in a lifelong process, they can tell you, umeaibisha rika yetu, and they can do anything to you. So therefore, that was a deterrent for some of the social ills we are seeing today.
Okay. I'm just curious. Slim.
Yes.
Did you ever go through any kind of rites of passage?
Of course I did.
Oh.
I did, but in our time, a bit fused. It's almost like a blended mode, which has a bit of modernism in it, but also a bit of cultural.
Okay.
And at that time, I remember even my own personal journey, I was brought for some 2-3 uncles who are senior, who would now come and share with you the cultural aspect of being a man and what that means. But coming from a Christian background with my parents, I was also having the ability to just sit down together with somebody who is biblically sound, and they were able to share. As much as you're going through this, this is also what God wants for you to, as you become a man.
Would you say it had any impact in your life?
I would say it had a lot of impact. At first, I was not seeing it in that sense, again, from the foolishness of my teenagehood. But, you know, looking now in hindsight, when I look at it now, I actually sit down and tell myself, hey, if it was not for those conversations, if it was not for that period, if it was not for that time, and if it was not for those 3 uncles, those 3 men who stepped up and decided to hold my hand, I would have so many questions. So these were the people who allowed me at the very first point as a young man to be able to have a conversation about, be it sex, be it parenthood, be it what is happening with my body. And I would have it without being shy, and nobody would laugh at me. I would have it, and these people would actually affirm me as a man, and they would speak into my body, but also they would speak about my thinking process, what is happening in terms of moving forward. So if that was not there, I think it would have affected my own growth as a man.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when I think about rites of passage, a lot has happened. I think maybe back in the day, because cultures were not so infused, you know, every culture tended to hold on to what they know and what they believe in. But now with modernism and a lot of infiltration from other cultures, it seems like this is something that we've left somewhere. It is on the back burner somewhere. Is it still necessary today? Is it still important for, especially focusing on the boy child? Is it important for the boy child to go through some form of rites of passage?
Yes, as you ask, it's important that we continue with the rite of passage. It's even in the West, they have those rite of passage programs. It's important to blend all cultures, both Christian faith, traditional culture. I have had an opportunity to work with the National Counterterrorism Center in Kenya to develop a program on mentorship, focusing on rite of passage for organized groups. And in this, I had an opportunity to research among various communities in Kenya. And in some communities, like Kalenjin and Maasai, this is the stage at which they pass down cultural history and information, and even their community secrets. And community values and roles, and they allocate roles. This, you are getting to this stage so that you become this. Of course, in the olden days, even the Kikuyus, they were told you are becoming a warrior to defend the community. But today we have to define what is this you are to defend your community against. You are to defend your community against ills, diseases, your territory, like we have Al-Shabaab and all that, indoctrination. Yeah, I'm sure. And I don't want to go into that detail. If you have someone who has undergone a rite of passage, whether in a Christian center or a cultural center, has had a mentorship program for 10 days, it is very hard to radicalize that person, because they will ask you why. Because you've instilled a culture of critical thinking, that whatever you do, there's a principle and objective behind it. For example, among the Agikuyu, when you undertake the rite of passage and start with the circumcision, which is a surgical process, that becomes a painful marker of your transition, at which stage the boy is forced, literally, to sit down and listen to information he does not like, or that he doesn't care. He would, in other circumstances,
he would rather be somewhere else,
playing funny balls or chasing rabbits. But he told, sit here for 10 days, and number 1, this is your identity. Number 2, this is your community. This is your history. These are your obligations. This is how you relate to God. This is how you relate to your family. This is how you relate to nation. You have to obey the national laws. You have to be patriotic, and many other things. So that 10, and this is how you relate with your mother. This is how you relate with women. Respect your sister. Don't be violent. You know, all those things. I'm sure even Slim in Daraja, most of the things I've mentioned, they had to go through that process. So this is a very important transformation in life, that should be upheld, not just now, but going forward into the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious because it seems like both of you are on the same wavelength. Is there really a difference then between the cultural one and the ones churches are doing?
Well, I would say it's not about, from where I see it, I don't look at it from the difference aspect of it. I look at it from where are we fusing and where is the connection point. What are we borrowing from each other and what are we adding? So, for example, at Daraja, what we do is we have something we call the 5 stages of transition into manhood. And in these 5 stages is the same thing that Dr. Mugo has alluded to. So in these 5 stages, we have something we call the first stage is separation, where this young man is separated from their family. You know, you're in a time you need to go through rites of passage. It's your period, it's your season of transition. We need to separate you, number one. Number 2 is seclusion. You've separated them from their family, from their parents, from their home, but then you seclude them in an environment that is completely different because it switches something in their head. Their mentality, their emotion, they can sense, they can tell something is happening that is different. So separation, seclusion, and the third one is the transition in itself, which comes in the circumcision, the teachings, the mentorship, the guidance, the sitting down to go through this. After this young man has gone through stage 1, separation, seclusion, transition, they get into stage 4, which is called celebration. Why? Because at that point, and Dr. Mugo will allude to this again, after they've gone through this process, we need to celebrate them and tell them, wow, we are proud of you, because men are rarely celebrated. And number 5, which is so important, because this stage does not stop. It is actually continuous. It is a stage we call affirmation. So if you were to look at it, it's separation, seclusion, transition, celebration, affirmation. Because affirmation, from the point where he has transitioned into manhood, you affirm who they are, you affirm what they've been taught, you affirm who God is calling them to be. And we base it on a very simple scripture from 1 Corinthians 13:11, which says, when I was a child, I thought like a child, I spoke like a child, and I acted like a child. But when I became a man, I left my childish ways behind me. Simply meaning, you were at a certain stage. You reached at a certain point, something changed in you. There was a transition. But moving forward, there is a direction. So where is God pointing you? So we can talk about it from a point of circumcision of the flesh, of what happened to you, but then again we talk about it for circumcision of your mind. How are you thinking in terms of you being cognitive, in terms of your senses, in terms of your maturity, but then again we talk about circumcision of the heart. And this is where the biblical and the Christian aspect comes in, because values, when you take them, it's very easy to sit somewhere and say, I'm arguing about this because this is what I've been taught. I'm arguing about this because there's a mark on my body. But what about arguing about it and believing and advocating for it because it is a belief, it is a value that you uphold. And in those values comes in parts of the lessons like integrity, self-awareness, and what we teach. So once they understand it and they hold it in their heart, then we believe that individual is able to now move forward and become that man. Because once they turn into manhood and they've transitioned, that is the same man who is going to bring up another child and take them through the process. So we are not leaving a gap. Bridging and making sure this rites of passage is happening in the right way, but the values that are important are there, because those values are not for the 10 days. No. They are lifelong
for the rest of your life.
Forever.
I want to rope in David Mungai into this conversation. David Mungai is from Street Nicer's Ministry Youth Resource Center. David, I'm just wondering, could it be that we've lost some of these things because we have not understood the why? Because from what Slim is saying and from what Dr. Mugo is saying, there's a lot of why behind whatever actions were done. And when you don't understand the why, you throw out the baby with the bathwater. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much. Now, this platform is very important in that aspect of answering the question, why? There is a point that has been skipped by today's generation. Because the basis of this conversation, I would believe, and I stand correct to be corrected, is that we want the best for the boy. We want responsible men.
Yeah.
That aspect of responsibility is the question why. Why are they not responsible?
Yeah.
Because if I wake up today, I have a son there, and then the son says, I want to go through the rite of passage. Do I know the correct process? What is required of this child so that he can become the man that we expect in the society? It is very important that we have this universal curriculum, so that what is taught to my son is taught to your son and to another person's son. Then once they meet, They know the do's and the
And
don'ts.
the don'ts.
And that is what will answer the question why we don't have these responsible men in the society again.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm just curious. Let me rope you in also. Simon Kinyanjui is, you work together with him?
Yes, he's part of Daraja.
He's part of Daraja. Yeye ni mjenga daraja. Yeah. Technician wa kujenga daraja. Simon, I'm just curious in terms of with all this modernization that's coming in and even thinking about Christianity. And I was having this conversation a few weeks back talking about culture and relationships. Have we thrown out everything cultural because we assumed that everything cultural is bad?
We are living in a secular world. We are living in a secular country where everyone is given the right to believe what they want to believe.
Yeah.
We no longer have the Kikuyus, the Luos, the Kalenjin living in their own communities and in their own areas of day-to-day activity. We are all one. And so this leaves me, probably as a Luo man, to decide what I want to do with my child. This leaves me as a Kikuyu man to decide what I want to do with my young boy who's coming up. And so we become, let me call it a selfish society where it is all about me. My child will grow up the way I want him to grow up because I know. The child today in Kenya does not belong to the society anymore.
Yeah.
The child belongs to the parent and the state. And so there are some factors that are being thrown out, yes. But again, times are changing. But one thing, I believe that nothing is lost and no man will be lost when both culture and faith unite.
You're watching Man Up on Family TV. Tonight we are talking about rites of passage. We are taking a short break. We'll be back for the second part of this conversation. So usiende mbali, uende tu kunywe maji alafu urudi.
Tomorrow on This Is My Story.
At some point, the doctors were confused and they were like, we don't know what's ailing this woman.
With all tests confirming their worst fears, the worst was yet to come.
Judy was almost declared dead because she wasn't breathing.
I could hear time of death, nature of death, state of death.
She ordered not to believe on the doctor's report, but to trust in the living word of God.
And this God that I serve is one God that I tell everyone just to trust him.
Don't miss out on This Is My Story, tomorrow at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back to Man Up. Tonight we are talking about rites of passage. We are hanging out with Dr. Michael Mugo, and also in studio with us we have Pastor Slim Sufficient and our audience live in studio. In fact, talking about our live audience, I want to get some questions from some of the gentlemen in studio. So we can begin with you. You can tell us your name and then ask your question.
Yes, my name is Eric Omulo, a pastor from Believers Faith Embassy. Mine is more or less a question, just an open question, maybe to Dr. Mugo and Slim. Don't you think at one point cultural, not really running away from cultural, but you see that traditionally people are supposed to marry from their own community, which had got specific cultures and values. Now, today, somebody can marry outside the community. You can marry outside your own country, even outside your own continent. And now you are actually trying to integrate different cultures, of which are very, very diverse. Now, when we come back and to us, how do we integrate that? Don't you think that sometimes, because today you find somebody that he doesn't know whether he's a man or he's still a boy? Because if he compares those cultures or values from others, there is a confusion in a way. So don't you think there is a gap in which, as we train ourselves into that passage, we need to tell one another that we know, according to our culture, this is how it is, but how can we integrate it? So if you can explain that to us, I think it will be better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pastor. That's a very important question because I can't understand you unless I understand me. So in the curriculum, we've developed the first topic is identity. And you have to clearly get your own, not identify yourself, but get your own and understand your own identity.
Yeah.
And that identity is a combination of many factors. Family, culture, where you come from, at least in Jama Umo, you know, that you must get an identity you believe in. And once you believe in that identity, then you can know that Slim is from that other community, and our point of convergence is this, and our difference is caused by this, and therefore you work on the interface by understanding that. That's how to integrate. The integrate does not mean you take beans and maize and boil together. It means that this person is able to, there's a flexible connection between one culture and the other culture. By understanding first your identity, then your culture. Even in marriage, it is once you understand your identity and you marry, maybe a Luo marrying a Kikuyu, when they go to the girl's family, there is the expected culture that will be followed.
Yeah.
When this girl is eventually married and they go to Luo Nyanza, there is the expected culture that will be followed. It is upon this family to create its own identity and say, for us, we are going to follow Luo traditions and Christian tradition in this context. So you define your culture, and that way you become resilient to other influences. So that someone will not tell you, hey, najua wewe ujielewi. You know that issue of kosa kujielewa. So the fact that unajielewa is a very important aspect of life going forward, and that eliminates issues of psychological confusions that cause watu hajielewi. And you know, you can be who you are because of where you are, or you are who you are because of who you work with. So it's very important that identity becomes a critical ingredient of mentorship.
Okay. Okay. There was one more question, and then we can come to David. He had also a comment. One more question. I think you had a question. Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, my name is Michael from Believers Faith Embassy. Okay, my question will go to Pastor Slim. Okay, I'm a teacher by profession, and I handle kids. And we are talking about the passage of right. And mostly, we look at it nowadays, most of our kids, they go this passage, some go through the occipital way.
Yes.
At the same time, some look at their age, because we normally do the registration. We realize that kid is maybe less than 18 years. They're not teenage. And we have been told by Dr. Mugo that during this stage, there are some values that are being inculcated in them. Now, this kid has not attained the teenage. How is this value going to stick into them? Yet, they have gone the stage, but naturally, they're still a kid. And what is the role of the church now to ensure that this learner or this boy or this man, let me use the word man, has become a man and a responsible citizen? Thank you.
All right, interesting question. Thank you so much for that. I do agree with Dr. Mugo that they do need to be at a certain age, certain point in life for them to be able to fully grasp what is being taught at that point of transition in the rites of passage. However, as much as they are young, they are probably still in Sunday school, they are growing, you know, this child is probably 9, 10, 11. They've not attained that particular age. What we have opted to do as Daraja in terms of solution is we could sit with them, have forums and engagements with them that are not necessarily rites of passage. We do not want to lie to their parents that this is a rite of passage. This is actually me spending time with your child, teaching them something from, you know, the Bible, discipling them, mentoring them, but allowing them to connect at a point where they could fully comprehend at that stage. Otherwise, if we take a 9-year-old 10 and we tell them we're taking you through rites of passage, we just don't think at that point they're cognitive enough, and we don't think they will respect and value what we are pouring into them. Also, we do not want to start introducing some very difficult concepts at that time before their right stage. So I believe that even from the word of God, there's a right time for everything. So I would rather allow and advise that parent that we allow their children to, come of age. I have had parents who want to come to our program, and we tell them, we will take in your child in the next 3 or 4 years. Because we will be doing an injustice to them by picking up their son to take them through this program without them coming out fully developed. We would rather do it the right way. Again, back to the integrity point.
David, you had a comment.
Answering the question of why do we have the man that we're having today, comparing to the man that we had yesterday, it is a process that is very packaged. And unpacking it is a big deal. Unpacking that process is a big deal. Now, there is a question that was raised. I want to connect that with the comment. I have a son who wants to marry someone who is outside the continent, leave alone the country that I am in.
Continent.
Another continent. That's a whole new diversity of culture. That's a whole new diversity of understanding each other. There are things or there are values that the other culture has that I don't have. How do I connect these two? Now, this is where we go to the basic line that we stated earlier, that we need a universal system that can be inculcated or that can be taught in every person, any man. This child who is undergoing the rite of passage will have to go to a center, maybe like Street Nisers Ministry, or will go through a church organized circumcision program, or will go through a culturally organized circumcision program or rite of passage. But what is the point? There are those who are in this as business. They just want to make money. So that is one area that needs to be looked at. These people who are organizing these circumcision programs, what is their impact to the future generations? Are they activating the mind of this boy? Because that is where it underpins the responsibility part. That is where it underpins the manhood part. Are you activating this boy? Because we are saying, this is a child who needs to transition into a sense of responsibility. That is what we are calling manhood. But today, as you said earlier, we have men who have already undergone through the rite of passage or circumcision for that matter. But when you look at their deeds, they are questionable. You wonder, where did this person go through? Did this person really go through this stage? That's the question, the biggest question. We need to weed out some of these things that are happening. Another person will say, I don't want to go to that center because I don't know what they teach there. Or maybe whatever they are teaching there is not good for me, not good for my family. So they say, well, I'll take my son to a hospital. The uncle is here, and then I'll get maybe a cousin to take care of this child. You're just talking about caregiving. Where is the mentorship? Do you have someone with content who can impact this person's future? And there goes the question. This child who has gone to this church, this center, this cultural organization, or this, for the rite of passage, whatever they have been taught there, will that have a positive impact in this person's future? Is this child grown enough to absorb the information? So, this is the point. It is a packaged process that needs unpacking carefully.
I like what you've said.
Thank you.
It is a packaged process. It's not an event. It's a process. My time is almost up. I'll give each one of you a minute to give me your parting shot.
Parting shot. Thank you very much. So my plea is that all the groups working together, maybe we'll need to seek for an organization that will facilitate an integrated maybe conference, and we different groups sit together, and we have this kind of 2 days meeting and try to come up with, clean up these curriculums and come up with a Kenyan method. I don't want to say universal. Come up with a Kenyan method, because our biggest interest now, Pastor, hata kama tunaenda biguni, tuko Kenya. Sasa tuwe na Kenyan accepted method that allows both Christian culture and any other group, organized group, that is dealing with the young people in the right way, however that right is described, working and moving together.
Awesome. Pastor Slim.
Yes, sir.
A slim comment from you as we finish.
Mine is simple.
Yeah.
We cannot afford to ignore the boy child, and we cannot afford to ignore the man. If we do that, it is detrimental to us as a society.
Yeah.
We will feel it, it will hurt us, we'll be in a mess. And what we are simply saying is, as Daraja, we are simply saying we are providing a solution, we are providing an avenue to allow for these conversations. So let's keep talking.
Awesome. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much.
My time is up for Man Up this evening. This is a conversation that we've barely scratched the surface. I mean, there's a lot more to talk about when you now begin to dive deep into what we are talking about, values. What values are this that we are teaching? Why is it important to teach these values? And so hopefully, if God allows, we'll pick up this conversation again and get a little bit deeper. But I think what we are saying tonight is that, you know what? These young men, before, you said the factory is broken.
Yeah.
We need to revive that factory so that we can churn out men who are responsible in the community today. Until next week, do have a great night and God bless you.
Amen.